So in this episode of Giant Stories, we had a great opportunity to talk to Monica Paul. She is the executive director of the Dallas Sports Commission. And for those of you not familiar with what they do, they are primarily responsible for bringing sporting events to North Texas. So a little thing called the World Cup is happening here next summer. We're actually having 9 matches. And so listening to Monica walk through the process of going through the bid for North America to be able to host and then for Dallas to be able to get the matches was in and of itself a pretty fascinating conversation. The layers of logistics and partnerships with businesses and sports organizations and local government just to bring it to life and bring it here was incredible. But one of the things I really found most interesting about this conversation was the love that she showed for WWE and what they taught her about what a great event can look like. There's some really interesting insight that she provided, and it makes for a fantastic story. So you guys enjoy and get fired up for the World Cup next summer coming to Dallas. Welcome to Giant Stories, a podcast inspired by people and brands with meaningful stories to share. I'm John Kiker, your host and president of Medium Giant, a fully integrated creative agency in Dallas and Tulsa. While the tools we have at our disposal to create and share stories have never been more broad, the fundamentals of great storytelling remain as transcendent as ever. Despite the headwinds our industry faces, clients and brands will always covet companies that remain steadfast, with a steady eye on culture, an understanding of the business dynamics at hand, and a commitment to the fundamentals of what makes a great story. So anybody with any knowledge of Dallas and North Texas, especially from a sports perspective, knows what's going on here next summer, as we are set to host 9. That's right, 9. You know that number better than anybody, I'm sure. FIFA World Cup matches, including one of the semifinals. Here's the biggest of events comes to North America, which is just unbelievably exciting. What everyone may not know is that the Dallas Sports Commission is intimately involved and has been and continues to be in those efforts. So we're excited to have Monica Paul, the executive director of the Dallas Sports Commission, here to join us for this episode of Giant Stories. Monica's almost 11-year tenure with the commission, really its entire existence, can also be overlapped with some of the most exciting events that have happened in North Texas. Think about the NHL Winter Classic at the Cotton Bowl, which was so friggin' cool. Think about the NCAA championships that have been played here and continue to be played here. If there's a sports-related meeting or event happening in North Texas, there's a really good chance that Monica and her team are involved. Each year, the dozens of events that they bring to the market have hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact. Nobody has more passion for this market and the kind of shows that we can put on for residents and guests. Prior to the Dallas Sports Commission, Monica spent several years with the Dallas CVB leading sports marketing, and prior to that, worked with USA Volleyball. She's a proud alumni of the University of Texas at Austin, which as a Sooner, I will be like, okay, here we go. But we're glad you're here, Monica. Also, the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, which I'm glad we got it out of the way that she only had to set foot. And it's a lovely town. It's a great school, but she only had to be there one time. Safe to say that sports is in her blood, and we are super excited to have you on the show.
Oh, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. But what a time to be alive in your position right now with what's coming.
A lot of excitement, and I can day by day you see it building here. A lot of people wanting to know how can they be involved in the World Cup, whether it's through volunteering, staffing, purchasing tickets, being a host city supporter. So I think future is very bright from a sports standpoint.
Oh my goodness. Well, we will get to the World Cup in a second, but we always start off these podcasts with asking our guests to tell us their story. So how did you get to where you are?
Sure. Well, grew up in a small town, Caldwell, Texas, about 3,500 people right outside of College Station, Texas A&M. I played sports growing up and ended up going into University of Mary Hardin-Baylor in Belton and playing volleyball there my freshman year. I tore my ACL, but quite honestly, maybe curfews and Monica didn't maybe quite mix, or that wasn't my idea.
What was your position in volleyball?
I was a setter.
Okay, nice.
So I transferred to the University of Texas and had the opportunity to work with the volleyball program there, and just happened
volleyball program.
Our head coach was offered the Olympic and women's national team coaching job. So he asked me and an assistant coach to go with him. And I was maybe 20, had about 14 more hours until I could graduate, get my undergraduate degree. And I'm like, there are way more people qualified than I to do this position. So I'm like, this is once in a lifetime. So I moved up to Colorado Springs, lived at the Olympic Training Center, worked with the women's team, made $50 a week. And but lived in the training center. I traveled all the time. Yes. So ended up finishing my degree, as you mentioned, then going to University of Northern Colorado through some distance learning and got my master's degree as well. And ended up staying probably another 4 years there with the national team, but then transitioned to Junior Volleyball Association of Austin. So for people here in Dallas, if they see the big volleyball tournaments and the young kids that are over at the convention center.
I've done my tours at the convention center.
Yes. So I ran that Lone Star Classic for many years and other tournaments, and then ventured on to USA Taekwondo, National Senior Games, which is one of my favorite events still. Ended up back at USA Volleyball working on some of their international events, and this position in Dallas came open. And it was a great way for me to get back to Texas, but then kind of work on the opposite side of what I had been doing. So I had been working on the events and sponsorships and the operational side. So, and working with many cities to place our events in various cities. So I'd worked with CBBs, sports commissions, and had always an interest to get here. So very thankful. I couldn't imagine doing this in another city. I don't think there's another city and region that has the infrastructure and the assets and honestly the people.
I think there's a whole can-do that goes into this whole
Absolutely.
Thing. You can't pull it off without a lot of that. Just out of curiosity, so with all the time that you spent with USA Volleyball, most memorable trip or moment or tournament or event that you
well, it'd have to be the Olympic Games. So I went to Sydney with a team that we had we didn't anticipate being able to play for a medal. And you just saw this team continue to build. We were playing for a bronze. We lost, so we didn't medal, but there was a big transition over that 4 years. First Olympic Games, and then I went to Athens as well, and kind of the exact opposite happened to that team. But I've traveled probably over 27 different countries and the different cultures and experiences, and just a different way to see the world. So very grateful for those years.
Yeah. Well, so let's take that experience and, not only from being able to travel and, see how events happen in other places, and certainly working from the perspective where you're helping to select the cities where an organization is going to go, to your role with the Dallas Sports Commission and getting the opportunity to put this city and this region on stage for FIFA. Walk us through that whole process of even before North America was selected. I'm sure that you guys were in conversations like, look, if this is going to happen, they have to have a set of cities in mind that even go into the presentation. So just walk us through the commission's involvement in that.
Well, the bid process, it always really starts out with, do we have the venues? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the hotels? And living in a city like Dallas, or even extending from a regional perspective here, we definitely have the resources and the facilities. So that's usually our first step with that. And each kind of bid is a little bit different.
Sure.
The time of year is important. So, if like a June, July, we're working on World Cup, definitely have to think about, hey, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of visitors here in the heat of the moment. So what are some additional incentives or events or shade structures or across the board in the operational piece? But from a World Cup perspective, this bid was a little bit unique. One, people were like, how long have you been working on this? And I say, well, 2017, this World Cup bid started, right? However, I consider it really 2010 because the bid for 2018 and 2022 came out in 2010. We weren't successful, but it laid a great foundation for us. And one of the reasons it's unique is we're having to bid for our country. So in 2010, for 2018 and 2022, it was just the USA. This one for 2026 was 3 countries, so all of North America. So you're really helping U.S. Soccer, Canadian Soccer Federation, Mexican Soccer Federation get all the cities together and identify all of the facilities that could serve for matches, base camps, training venues, the hotel piece. Airports are extremely important to have that built out, and putting all of that in front of them and even more so, not just the operational pieces, but your legacy pieces. How could this event, hosting the World Cup or even any event, what type of lasting legacy
Yep.
can this provide for the area? So we're thinking kind of pre-planning the event
Right.
while we're bidding. Now, once it was named that North America was the host, then it's gloves are off, and
Right.
then you're like competing
piece of
against
the action.
other. Yes,
Right.
you're competing in a normal bid process against other cities, and it's. I think we know what we have here. We're proud of it, but we're not. I don't think we're like. We're not throwing it in someone else's face of who we are,
Sure.
but we're very proud of what
Quite
we
confidence
have.
about
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
I love that. So, all things being equal, like let's say throughout that process, they're considering Dallas and they're considering, let's say, Minneapolis, and so like let's say that on the surface, all the facilities are the same, airport access, all these things are the same, which they probably aren't. I'm picking out maybe two different markets, but assuming that all things are the same, like what's the angle for Dallas? How do you guys pitch what's unique about North Texas to, especially an organization like U.S. Soccer, who's helping decide some of those sites with FIFA?
Well, I think there's a few areas that we always highlight. One, we want to be the best, and we want win-win partnerships and relationships. We're not going to be successful or consider ourselves successful unless a U.S. Soccer or the event is
Right.
setting records and they're continuing to elevate their product as well, and vice versa. I mean, there's a lot of ways that events help, not only from an economic impact standpoint, brand positioning,
Sure.
global positioning, and then kind of legacy pieces are really our thing. So we approach it like that, but then it's also true partnership, and then the people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the people here that kind of I won't say the hospitality, our Texas hospitality, it shines through. People tell us about it all the time. We have a very entrepreneurial, can-do spirit here in Dallas, and it I would say oozes, but people can feel that, and they're like, we have different conversations when we're here in Dallas or working with the stadium or one of our professional teams of how can we continue to elevate and raise that bar.
Well, and if you look around the state, I mean, there's a track record from a pure economic perspective of a lot of companies that are choosing to relocate their businesses here, and obviously there's a lot of incentives that are provided and all that kind of thing. But what the common thread that I see in that is that city and state government helps, and they get involved and they get in the pitch. And so one thing I have found about our civic leadership is that they are all galvanized, whether it's from the governor all the way down to really get involved and see how they can help out with the cause. And I'm sure that was the case with you guys.
Without a doubt. And, even, Governor Abbott, he has two cities that'll be hosting World Cup matches. So, and he provided support, and his staff were actually present in our pitch to FIFA before they had made host cities. And we're very fortunate here in Texas that we do have, trust fund programs that allow us to offset some of the cost, use some of the incremental tax dollars that event will bring in to offset some of the cost. And that just continues to help us generate additional events coming, but it can help us to ensure that we're successful, which means our businesses are successful as well. And you're right. I mean, maybe we've had a history here of other cities of like, no, that's mine. The stadium is here, hotels are here, the convention center in this city. But a World Cup really takes everyone. So everyone has to pull together, and we have to operate as one team to be successful. And so far, we're seeing that, and knowing that this event is going to benefit the whole entire region.
Talk about that process, because obviously you've got the city of Dallas, you've got the city of Arlington where the stadium sits. From a logistics and events perspective, you have to pull in Fort Worth. You need to pull in, Frisco, Plano. In a sense, it's a massive advantage because you have all of these partners who have their own facilities. Like, there's not much that has to get built per se compared to some other markets or other nations that have hosted the Cup before. But talk about that process of coming together and like logistically figuring out how can everybody really benefit from this?
Yeah, I mean, it starts kind of with the venues of
Yeah.
like, all right, Arlington, you have AT&T Stadium there, so we know the matches are going to be there. But
Right.
as part of this bid, we had to outlay, I think we put forth 11, 12 different training venues and base camps.
Right.
Ultimately, we're down to, well, they've selected 7 here, so 5 base camps and then 2 venue-specific training sites. But you've got one that's in Fort Worth, one that's in Denton, one that's in Frisco, one in Dallas, one in Irving, and then SMU and Cotton Bowl will be
Right.
the venue-specific. So and then you have the hotels that kind of go around those pieces as well. Not only the competition side of it, but then you look at the ancillary events and the fan festivals.
Sure.
And because we are such a big region, it really takes people identifying, okay, we do want a fan fest, we do want a public viewing event or a fan zone. So then
In the summer, which is a
yes.
Right.
And then from an organizing committee, you're like, okay, how can we make sure that we have good regional representation here so everyone gets a little piece of the pie, I guess. But we know that residents are going to be participating in this World Cup too, whether it's from attending matches or going to watch parties and fan festivals or volunteering, those types of things. So it starts with the mayor and the city manager level, and then kind of the working with the different departments within the city and the facility owners directly as well.
Sure.
Because that's, if we don't have that,
Well,
we lose out.
talk about because you could drive literally any direction in the market right now, and you can see a ton of construction going on, whether it's infrastructure or hotels or whatever. Talk about some of the efforts from an infrastructure perspective that are involved to make this this event, which we'll get to the 9 matches because that's a whole nother layer to it. But they would talk about all the efforts that are involved right now in getting ready for this event.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some key areas for sure.
Yeah.
Transportation being one of them, safety and security probably being another.
Sure.
From a transportation standpoint, we're working with the North Central Texas Council of Governments and Michael Morris and his team, as well as with Trinity Metro, DART. We have to ensure that it's kind of seamless when people arrive at the airport, that they can easily take rail transportation or bus or shared ride.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
People thinking about the partnership with DFW Airport.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be.
They must have gone through at least 5-6 different workshops already on FIFA stuff. So they're well advanced in the planning process of it. But we're looking at it not only from like FIFA's key stakeholders, so not just the teams and their staff and the referees and officials, but those hundreds of thousands of spectators that are going to be here. And another layer on this one is that while we've hosted Super Bowls and Final Fours and WrestleMania, this one has a very high potential for international guests, right?
Absolutely.
From all over the world.
Yeah.
People will be coming here. A lot of other places in the world, other World Cups have a very dedicated metro type of system, or even where they live, a lot of places in Europe, that's how they travel on a daily basis, right? So we're figuring out.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we don't have that yet, but we have pieces of it. So we're utilizing the DART, working with them and Trinity Metro, so that credential holders and the spectators on match days can utilize that. And then obviously we have to rely on buses. Safety, security, we have probably 18 different focus groups and working groups across the entire Metroplex. So even people like Irving is one of the base camp locations that could be chosen. Well,
Okay.
They have representation on other of the 18 subcommittees and focus groups around safety and security, even though it may not really affect them, but that communication and ensuring that the whole Metroplex has a clearer picture of kind of what's going on. But then we have human rights, sustainability committees that are going on. A lot of discussion right now in various cities within the region in terms of beautification. What are some things in sidewalks that maybe we want our downtown or
Right.
high traffic areas to maybe be spruced up a little bit? Not that it's bad, but
Right.
there's always some improvements so that people can, our guests and visitors can have an enjoyable time.
For sure. So let's talk about the 9 matches, because I think most of the other markets, I'm guessing, are somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4. Some maybe a little bit more than that, but just having by far the most happening here. Talk about just from a logistical perspective, because you could have a number of teams sitting in the market at any given point, depending where they are in their rotation. And the you talk about all of the training centers, but it's the fan bases that are all going to be here concurrently too. And how you guys think about that? I mean, it's an amazing opportunity for the market, but logistically, it's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, and we look at that match schedule that has come out in numerous ways. If we look at our first two matches, actually our match days are the same as Houston, are just the first two. And typically, you think about a Super Bowl or Final Four, that happens, we'll say, over a week time period with the ancillary events. Yeah. But that happens in one city in the United States. You've got 11 cities within the United States that are hosting matches. And sometimes where Houston comes in, we would share borrow resources
from a state perspective, for sure.
Whether it's staffing, safety, security, whether it's buses, needs and that sort of thing. Well, we'll be hosting our first two matches at the same time. So we look at a lot of things like that in terms of how is this possibly going to affect us. 39 straight days. This is going to be the largest World Cup ever. Yeah. Towards the end, it gives us the opportunity to maybe add in some ancillary events, because you have about
like around
7-8 days.
Things like that,
yeah,
right.
So maybe it does that week does take on more of the
Super
Bowl type,
which is funny because it's already going to be a Super Bowl. It's almost like another level, right?
To build up, it gives us a great opportunity to also program the fan festival, which we're projecting to be out at Fair Park. So some other concert series, maybe a little state fair feel every now and then.
Get some Fletchers out there for the folks.
It might be some Fletchers, maybe some Ferris wheel, Texas Star taking shape. See what we can do with Big Tex. If he can welcome them to the Fan Fest. So a lot of ideas going on. We're still very early in our planning process.
I love that. I mean, because a huge part of the opportunity is not just to welcome them for the games, but to help indoctrinate them into North Texas culture and all that it represents. And so that's got to be a huge part of the experience that you want everybody to take some piece away of, right?
Yeah, that's an important piece for us as we plan not only fan festival, watch parties, other ancillary events that pop up, is how can we share with them, all of our visitors, why we love living here in the North Texas area, and whether it's different attractions, different foods that make this special. We want them coming away and say, "Hey, I can't wait for the next time that I come back to Dallas."
Absolutely, for whatever the event is.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, totally switching topics to the NHL event at the Cotton Bowl. How hard was that to pull off? Because I remember the weather that day was pretty warm.
It was perfect. Yeah. Actually, that event makes me smile. Actually, still gives me goosebumps today. I actually had to do a site visit out at Fair Park as we were looking at fan.
So for those of our listeners who don't know or aren't familiar with Dallas, Cotton Bowl outdoor stadium, historically venerable stadium in Dallas Fort Worth. An ice rink sitting in there on New Year's Day for a game, and ice rink in North Texas.
Yeah, like 88,000, 85,000 people there, and the weather was the component, because I mean, it's a science. These guys, how they kept ice out in an outdoor stadium, they know what they're doing, but I know it's like, okay, clouds, it can't be this, the temperature needs to be this time of day makes, if this happens, then the ice is going to melt, and we're going to have issues. But still, best memory of 2020, because that was January 1st, 2020, and then we all know what kind of happened in March.
Absolutely.
But to be able to pull that off, we actually had a fan festival in part of the Midway out there. That is one that I would very much love to come back here to the North Texas area. We definitely know that the Stars fans and the hockey fans really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
We also know a little bit more about their beer consumption as well.
They ran out, if I recall.
No, they may have run out of different in another city for a Winter Classic, but they did not run out here. That was like one of the top things on the list whenever we were going through the event planning. It's like, you think you're ordering enough, but just
plus it up.
Just plus it up. Yes, just trust us.
Priorities.
When we say yes.
Well done. So You've had exposure to a lot of sporting events, whether it's within North Texas or around the country, or even around the world. Talk about, when you guys set up this event, obviously it needs to be uniquely North Texas, and that combination of our story plus the FIFA story and the FIFA brand, which it's very strong. They're very protective of, rightfully so, because of what it means to millions around the world. But you've been to enough events to see, like, okay, this went really well. This was a good story. This was a good experience. What are some of those events that you've been to that you're like, wow, we should pick some things off from what they did?
Well, I use WWE and WrestleMania a lot.
Okay.
One, it's, some of
Did not have that on my bingo card, but
well, I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
They do a lot within the community.
Okay.
And I think, we can all sell tickets, and the revenue that's generated, obviously that's very, very important. The exposure, the sponsorships that kind of go along with it. But so many of these big events, it's about what are we leaving behind here within the community? Or how can kids that, may not have access to be able to attend or even participate locally, they don't even have courts, fields, which, pick your sport.
Sports deserts, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't even have opportunity, the means to participate in sport. And WWE does a phenomenal job getting out in the community. Some of it is, with veterans. Some of it is anti-bullying. They do a breast cancer awareness. They do a kind of a workshop with veterans who are trying to get back into the workforce and help them, I would say, dress for success, but write their resumes, do interviewing techniques, and really dedicated platforms. Make-A-Wish is one of their partners, and their superstars are integrated and participate, and they show up. And I just, it's one of the lasting things. We can set, we set attendance records, and for both of our WrestleManias that we've done here over the past 10, 15 years. But it's the community piece that
I love that.
I think WrestleMania or WWE does it really well.
I love that. That's great. Let's talk about technology. And if you think about all the ways, if you are not on site at an event, technology gives us a million ways to consume sporting events now. I mean, you can even, in Dallas or in Frisco, you can go up to the Cosm and see a very unique, technologically brilliant experience there, or on your phone, or obviously at home. How are you guys thinking about technology and its role when the event comes to town, and how you're going to integrate more immersive type of things into the experience?
Well, some of it we rely on FIFA and what they're going to be able to bring to the table. They will have their own app. We're still kind of waiting, what does that incorporate or include? What do you already have built? And what are things that we may need more of as a communication tool with all the visitors?
Sure.
Whether...
I think all the language needs that you...
Yeah, I was going to say the language translation is one thing, but, we're going to need to talk to them about, hey, here are the transportation modes. Here's when the buses are coming in, rather than create 5-6 different apps.
Right.
You might as well integrate it into as much as that information into the FIFA app. So that's really one of the key areas. The other is kind of delivery of different content. Yes, we're preparing for a fan festival with 40,000 people, but then what is that option to stream, and then stream also in multiple languages, and have the watch parties, available.
Right.
And
which will have their own huge massive screens and all that. So,
accessibility is something that we're also heavily looking at in certain areas, and sometimes that takes some technology that maybe traditionally we don't look at or haven't had to do for past events. So that's kind of where we're looking at it. And then hopefully some of the brands that we'll be working with as host city supporters, or some of FIFA's commercial affiliates,
bring in their...
They're probably operating on a whole different level than what we're looking at. Yes. I think that's also then becomes some lasting legacy for us as well, that we incorporated into our future event planning, or it's just stuff that's left here that we're able to to utilize in the future.
Talk about, you mentioned local partners. So how are you guys? So obviously FIFA has a list of global sponsors who are at that very high tier of partnerships, but obviously there's a chance for local brands to be able to participate. How are you guys viewing opportunities for local brands?
Yes. So FIFA has their commercial partners and commercial affiliates, some just with FIFA, some that are just World Cup or Club World Cup focused. So
some have a footprint here too, which is
yes. They have a lot of our partners. They call Dallas and DFW home. But each host city is allowed 10 host city supporter packages, and that incorporates everything from suite and hospitality, some media, legacy and community components that kind of go in that, activation at fan festival and other watch party and zones that we have set up here. So it's really an opportunity, kind of a pretty substantial opportunity to not only get the brand exposure, could be to provide opportunities to employees through securing volunteer positions. Tickets and hospitality are key. Many people want to go to the actual matches, but we actually also have to work with FIFA to ensure that any of our host city supporters aren't in conflict with their commercial partners. So a lot of communication that goes back and back. As we continue down, probably get to our 1 year out, then there'll be some other community champion donors, those who are really looking to maybe provide some lasting legacy. It could be in the sustainability front. It could be in soccer fields, soccer equipment, and some of those soccer deserts that we mentioned earlier.
It actually makes me reflect on the local market, because the World Cup, for those of you who were born after, World Cup was here in '94, right?
Yeah.
I actually got to go to a game. I was living in D.C. at the time. I got to go to a match between Italy and Mexico, and it was fantastic. But I know that since that time, there have been a lot of people and a lot of organizations. I mean, you could talk about FC Dallas and the Hunt family, but there's been a lot of local people really, really championing this cause. So like how, for you to be involved with the commission, basically since it's existed, like how gratifying was it for you guys when you finally got it across the line that Dallas was going to be able to not only host, but just to get 9 matches and really have the thumbprint on this experience that you guys are going to be able to have?
Well, it was like you could breathe a little bit, quite honestly. You didn't get to sit and like smell the roses and enjoy it for too long, because then the realization of, okay, now we have to get into operation mode. Everything that we promised over here, we actually have to do.
Right.
But when I get to speak at a lot of things, and I just left an event in which Dan Hunt was there. But sometimes I sit out and I think and see all the different people that help make these things into a reality, and very grateful for the people that we have here, because everyone's always willing to pitch in, or how can we help, or hey, have you thought about this? I'm the one who gets to talk about it a lot, and people give me a lot of the credit, but it truly is a team effort. I mean, what AT&T Stadium and the Cowboys organization and the Jones family done with the stadium, and how they're willing to lean in. Each of these major events that we host, there's always either a venue or one of our professional teams that is also a partner of ours in this. So to see it work together and kind of see this momentum, because after 26, I mean, I've made it pretty clear that I want a Women's World Cup in 2031.
There you go.
So this, I feel, yes, we're organizing to host a successful Men's World Cup in 2026, but I see this. I'm in a bid process right now, even though the bid process hasn't officially started with U.S. Soccer. But I'm we have to execute this so that they can easily see, okay, this should be hands down. Dallas should be a Women's World Cup host city in 2031.
Because once you've got the blueprint, it's literally just played the tape.
Yes.
And show what you were able to execute at this level. And by 2031, there'll be even more infrastructure, probably a new convention center.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot more.
Fingers crossed that convention center needs to be complete for sure by 2031.
Council, let's get it.
It better be before then. But yes, I mean our whole downtown will look a little bit
dramatically different for sure. No, I love it. So I would love for our listeners, especially those who live in North Texas, just to kind of get a sense of when that month starts next summer, I don't think anybody really understands what it is that's getting ready to come down here. Obviously, everybody's like, "Oh my God, more traffic!" But all the work being done on infrastructure. I think just talk about the enthusiasm and the international attention that's going to be on this market. It's going to be like nothing we've ever experienced.
Right. I had the opportunity to go to Russia and Qatar. Russia, about 3-day whirlwind tour. I'd never been to a World Cup, been to every major event there possibly is, but never a World Cup. And I knew that, the next one was going to be Qatar, and I knew the footprint was not going to be what we're going to be experiencing here in 2026. So, but both of them were lessons learned. But Russia, for me, to see the passion, to see the culture, to see the energy that was there, that was so different than any other major event. That's one of the things that unless you've been in it, see it, feel it, you can't, it's hard to explain to somebody. Because especially here, we love our football, our college football or our NFL football. And those are different, great experiences too, but very different from a World Cup experience. So, there's going to be plenty of ways for people to be involved.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers to that right now, which probably frustrates a lot of people, but we're still a year and 3-4 months out from that.
The beauty is you guys are already thinking across the entire region, right?
Oh, yes. We're working Fort Worth, Frisco. I actually meet with Fort Worth, Frisco in the morning. I spoke in Fort Worth last week. So different planning on the city level, and then on a regional level is taking place. And each city kind of knows here's where we need to see some improvement, or we want to host this type of event. I mean, there's some museums that are like, we're going to have specific soccer exhibits.
Love it.
And so they were thinking that 2 years ago, and now we're seeing some of this start to take shape.
Well, I couldn't be more excited about the event, and I know just speaking on behalf of North Texas, we couldn't be more appreciative of the efforts that you and the Dallas Sports Commission and just everybody have gone through to bring this event to life. It's going to be unbelievable, and we are indebted to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No, I'm excited. This is sometimes once in a generation opportunity for people.
Yeah,
so
can't wait to make it happen. Thanks so much for joining us, Monica. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Giant Stories is a production of Medium Giant and our parent company, the Dallas News Corporation. Interested in learning more about how your brand's story can be better told and sold? Visit mediumgiant.co or send an email to hello@mediumgiant.co.